Good afternoon, everyone. This is our annual Holiday Extravaganza. Thank you all for coming down. We're going to read now a tradition, which has become a tradition here in Norwood, and it's the How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Every Who down in Whoville liked Christmas a lot, but the Grinch, who lived just north of Whoville, did not. The Grinch hated Christmas, the whole Christmas season. Now, please don't ask why. No one quite knows the reason. It could be his head wasn't screwed on just right. It could be, perhaps, that his shoes were too tight. But I think the most likely reason of all may have been that his heart was 2 sizes too small. But whatever the reason, his heart or his shoes, he stood there on Christmas Eve hating the Whos, staring down from his cave with a sour, grinchy frown at the warm-lighted windows below in their town. For he knew every Who down in Whoville beneath was busy now hanging a mistletoe wreath. And they're hanging their stockings, he snarled with a sneer. Tomorrow is Christmas, it's practically here. Then he growled with his Grinch fingers nervously drumming. I must find a way to stop Christmas from coming. For tomorrow, he knew, all the Who girls and boys would wake bright and early. They'd rush for their toys. And then, oh, the noise, noise, noise. That's one thing he hated. The noise, 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 noise. Then the Whos, young and old, would sit down to a feast. And they'd feast, and they'd feast, and they'd feast, 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 feast. They would feast on Who pudding, they would feast on rare Who beast, which was something the Grinch couldn't stand in the least. And then they'd do something he liked least of all. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, would stand close together with Christmas bells ringing. They'd stand hand in hand, and the Whos would start singing. And they'd sing, and they'd sing, and they'd sing, 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 sing. And the more the Grinch thought of this Who Christmas sing, the more the Grinch thought, I must stop this whole thing. Why, for 53 years I've put up with it now. I must stop this Christmas from coming. But how? Then he got an idea, an awful idea. The Grinch got a wonderful, awful idea. I know just what to do, the Grinch laughed in his throat. And he made a quick Santa Claus hat and a coat. And he chuckled and clucked. What a great Grinchy trick. With this coat and this hat, I look just like Saint Nick. All I need is a reindeer. The Grinch looked around. But since reindeer are scarce, there were none to be found. Did that stop the Grinch? No. The Grinch simply said, if I can't find a reindeer, I'll make one instead. So he called his dog Max, then he took some red thread, and he tied a big horn on the top of his head. Then he loaded some bags and some old empty sacks on a ramshackle sleigh, and he hitched up old Max. Then the Grinch said, giddy up, and the sleigh started down toward the homes where the Whos lay a-snooze in their town. All their windows were dark, quiet snow filled the air. All the Whos were all dreaming, sweet dreams without care, when he came to the first little house on the square. This is stop number 1, the old Grinchy Claus hissed, and he climbed to the roof, empty bags in his fist. Then he slid down the chimney, a rather tight pinch. But if Santa could do it, then so could the Grinch. He got stuck only once for a moment or two. Then he stuck his head out of the fireplace flue, where the little Who stockings all hung in a row. These stockings, he grinned, are the first things to go. Then he slithered and slunk with a smile most unpleasant around the whole room, and he took every present. Pop guns and bicycles, roller skates, drums, checkerboard tricycles, popcorn, and plums. And he stuffed them in bags. Then the Grinch very nimbly stuffed all the bags one by one up the chimney. Then he slunk to the icebox. He took the Who's feast. He took the Who pudding. He took the roast beast. He cleaned out the icebox as quick as a flash. Why, that Grinch even took the last can of Who hash. Then he stuffed all the food up the chimney with glee. And now, he grinned the Grinch, I will stuff up the tree. And the Grinch grabbed the tree, and he started to shove, when he heard a small sound like the coo of a dove. He turned around fast, and he saw a small Who, little Cindy Lou Who was not more than 2. The Grinch had been caught by this tiny Who daughter, who got out of bed for a cup of cold water. She stared at the Grinch and said, Santa Claus, why? Why are you taking our Christmas tree? Why? But you know, that old Grinch was so smart and so slick, he thought up a lie, and he thought it up quick. Why, my sweet little tot, the fake Santa Claus lied. There's a light on this tree that won't light on one side. So I'm taking it home to my workshop, my dear, and I'll fix it up there. Then I'll bring it back here. And this fib fooled the child. Then he patted her head, and he got her a drink, and he sent her to bed. And when Cindy Lou Who went to bed with her cup, he went to the chimney and stuffed the tree up. Then the last thing he took was the log for their fire. Then he went up the chimney himself, the old liar. On their walls he left nothing but hooks and some wire. And the one speck of food that he left in the house was a crumb that was even too small for a mouse. Then he did the same thing to the other Who's houses, leaving crumbs much too small for the other Who's mouses. It was 1/4 dawn, and the Who's still abed, all the Who's still a snooze, when he packed up his sled, packed it up with their presents, their ribbons, their wrappings, the tags and the tinsels, the trimmings, the trappings. 3,000 feet up the side of Mount Crumpet, he rode with his load to the tip-top to dump it. Pooh-pooh to the Who's, he was grinchiously humming. They'll find out now that no Christmas is coming. They're just waking up. I know just what they'll do. Their mouths will hang open a minute or two. Then the Who's down in Whoville will all cry, boo-hoo. That's a noise, grinned the Grinch, that I simply must hear. So he paused, and the Grinch put a hand to his ear. And he did hear a sound rising over the snow. It started in low, and it started to grow. But the sound wasn't sad. Why, this sound was merry. It couldn't be so, but it was merry, very. He stared down at Whoville. The Grinch popped his eyes. Then he shook. What he saw was a shocking surprise. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, was singing without any presents at all. He hadn't stopped Christmas from coming. It came. Somehow or other, it came just the same. And the Grinch, with his Grinch feet ice cold in the snow, stood puzzling and puzzling. How could it be so? It came without ribbons. It came without tags. It came without packages, boxes, or bags. And he puzzled 3 hours till his puzzler was sore. Then the Grinch thought of something he hadn't before. Maybe Christmas, he thought, doesn't come from a store. Maybe Christmas, perhaps, is a little bit more. And what happened then? Well, in Whoville, they say, the Grinch's small heart grew 3 sizes that day. And the minute his heart didn't feel quite so tight, he whizzed with his load through the bright morning light. He brought back the toys and the food and the feast. And he himself, the Grinch, carved the roast beast. The end. Thank you. If anybody wants to have a picture taken with the Grinch and Max the dog and Cindy Lou Who, They'll be on the side of the bandstand, downstairs, down on the sidewalk.
Let's begin together. We'll all start the beginning together, okay? 'Twas the night before Christmas. Come on, kids. And all through the house, not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. Want to do it again? Let's do it again. Louder. Louder, okay? Ready? 'Twas the Christmas. And good job. Good job. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there. How many children have a Christmas stocking? Wow, that's really a lot. That's really a lot. What do you get in your stockings? Very good. The children were snuggled. The children were nestled, all snug in their beds, while visions of sugar plums danced in their heads. And Mama in her kerchief and I in my cap had just settled down for a long winter's nap. Do you kids go to bed early on Christmas Eve? Do you leave cookies for Santa? All right. When out on the lawn there arose such a clatter, I sprang from my bed to see what was the matter. Away to the window I flew like a flash, tore open the shutter and drew away the sash. They opened the window to see what was going on in the yard. If you want to see the pictures, look at the pictures. The moon on the breast of the new fallen snow gave a luster of midday on objects below. Now, how many children have seen the moon? Raise your hand. How many seen the moon shining on the snow at night? All right, okay. That's a good thing. When what to my wondering eyes should appear but a miniature sleigh and 8 tiny reindeer, with a little old driver so lively and quick, I knew in a moment who was the driver of the sleigh. Who was it? That's who I think it was. I think it was Santa Claus. I think you're right. And more rapid than eagles his coursers they came, and he whistled and shouted and called them by name. Now, do any of you children know some of these names? If you do, yell them out. Now Dasher, now Dancer, now Prancer and Vixen, on Comet, on Cupid, on Donner and Blitzen, to the top of the porch, to the top of the wall. Now dash away, dash away, dash away, all. Santa is now getting ready to go down the chimney. As dry leaves that fly with a wild hurricane fly, when they meet with an obstacle, rush to the sky. So up to the housetop, his coursers they flew, with a sleigh full of toys, and St. Nicholas too. And then, in a twinkling, I heard on the roof the prancing and pawing of each little hoof. I drew in my head and was running around, when down the chimney St. Nicholas came with a bound. He was dressed all in fur from his head to his foot, and his clothes were all tarnished with ashes and soot. A bundle of toys he had flung on his back, and he looked like a peddler just unloading his pack. See Santa? Past putting the toys for the children? His eyes, how they twinkled, his dimples, how merry, His cheeks were like roses, his nose like a cherry. His droll little mouth was drawn tight like a bow, and his beard on his chin was as white as the snow. The stump of a pipe he held tight in his teeth, and the smoke it encircled his head like a wreath. Santa shouldn't have been smoking. Smoking's bad. He had a broad face and a round little belly that shook when he laughed like a bowl full of jelly. He was chubby and plump, a right jolly old elf, and I laughed when I saw him in spite of himself. A wink of his eye and a twist of his head soon gave me to know I had nothing to dread. He spoke not a word, but went straight to his work, and filled and turned and head with a jerk. And laying his finger beside of his nose, and giving a nod up the chimney, he rose. He sprang from his sleigh, to his team gave a whistle, and away they all flew like the down of a thistle. But when I heard him exclaim as he drove out of sight, what do you think Santa said when he was going away? What do you children think? Exactly right. Let's all say it together. All right, now we'll read this page again, and when I get to that part, all of you yell Merry Christmas, okay? All right, let's do this together now. But I heard him exclaim as they drove out of sight. I can't hear you. Just a little bit louder. Yay! Thank you, children. You know, you children, we have a wonderful town here, and you children are our future, and we appreciate you being here so much, and we love you. We wish you a Merry Christmas. Yay!
And shepherds before him do fall, brightest and best of the sons of the morning, dawn on our darkness and endless thy name. Silently is the horizon adorning, time when our infant Redeemer was laid. Say, shall we devotion, odors of Eden and offerings divine, gems from the mountain and pearls from the ocean, myrrh from the forest and gold from the mine. Infant so a cheer from everywhere, filling the air. Christmas, pass away, the old year passes. Hail the new year, lads and lasses. Laughing, laughing, all together, heedless of the wind and weather.
Oh, they gave me a mic. Woo! Jingle bells, come on. Into the snow, with a one-horse open sleigh. On the field we go, laughing all the way. Hop, 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 bells on my tail ring. They gave me my shaking spirits bright. What fun it is to ride and sing a sleighing song tonight. Oh! I can't hear you. Oh, what fun it is to ride in one-horse open sleigh. Hey! Jingle bells, come on, Katie. Jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in one-horse open sleigh. Woo! Good job. Good job. They're going to take this mic away from me, so are we done singing, Travis? I think we're going to light the lights. Everybody ready? Ready?
Ready? 10, 9,